She was drinking poison every single morning. The woman who put it in her tea? The same homeless woman she saved from the streets and gave everything to. But here's the shocking part. She wasn't just being poisoned by a stranger. The man helping to kill her was her own husband's family member, planning to steal her billion-dollar empire. When she found out the truth, she did something absolutely insane. Something that would either expose them all or get her killed. She faked her own death. But wait. Before I tell you what happened next, you need to understand how this all started. Because this billionaire woman didn't just save any homeless person. She saved a woman holding 2 babies with the most haunting eyes she'd ever seen. Eyes that looked exactly like her dead husband's. And that's when everything went wrong. This is a true story about a woman who learned the hardest lesson of her life. Sometimes the people you save will be the ones who destroy you. But it's also about something even more powerful. It's about a choice she made that will leave you speechless. I'm telling you right now, this story will shock you. It will make you angry. It will break your heart. And by the end, it will make you question everything you thought you knew about forgiveness. So here's my promise to you. If you stay with me until the end of the story, you'll witness one of the most dramatic courtroom moments you've ever heard. You'll see a dead woman walk into a room full of people who thought they'd gotten away with murder. And you'll understand why choosing love over hate is not weakness. It's the bravest thing anyone can do. Are you ready? Because this story is about to take you on a journey you'll never forget. Welcome to the story room. While you are here, please hit the subscribe button and comment your view on the story and where you're watching from. Let me tell you about a woman named Olivia Hamilton. She lived in one of those massive estates in Sandton, Johannesburg, the kind with security guards, fountains, and gates that never opened for strangers. People said she was cold, that she had no heart, just money and power. But they didn't know the truth. Olivia was 42 years old, tall and elegant, with dark skin that glowed like polished mahogany. She always wore designer clothes and carried herself like royalty. She owned Hamilton Tech Industries, one of the biggest technology companies in South Africa. Her late husband, David, had built it from nothing, and when he died 6 months ago from a sudden heart attack, she took over everything. But money couldn't fill the emptiness in her home. You see, Olivia and David had been married for 12 years. 12 long years of trying to have a baby. 12 years of hospital visits, treatments, prayers, and tears. 12 years of people whispering behind her back. What's wrong with her? Why can't she give him a child? David always held her hand and said, "It doesn't matter. We have each other. That's enough." Now he was gone. And she had nothing. No husband. No children. Just a big empty house and a company full of people who pretended to respect her. The only real friend she had was her childhood friend, Linda, who had just given birth to a beautiful baby girl. Yesterday, Olivia had visited her at the hospital, held that tiny baby in her arms, and felt her heart break all over again. That's why, on this particular Wednesday afternoon, as she sat in the back of her black Mercedes, she wasn't really paying attention to the traffic. Her driver, Samuel, was navigating through the crowded streets of Johannesburg, heading back to Sandton. "Madam," Samuel said, glancing in the rear-view mirror. "Should I take the shortcut through Alexandra? This traffic might keep us here until nighttime." Olivia didn't answer at first. She was staring out the window, lost in thoughts about babies and broken dreams. "Madam." Samuel tried again. "Just take whichever route," she said quietly. "I don't care how long it takes." "Yes, madam." The car turned onto a smaller road. Then it stopped at a red traffic light. Samuel was about to comment on the traffic jam when Olivia suddenly sat up straight. "What's that?" she said, her voice sharp. "What's what, madam?"
There.
"Near that pole." Samuel looked. There was a young woman sitting on the dirty sidewalk. She looked like she hadn't bathed in weeks, her clothes torn and filthy. But that wasn't what caught Olivia's attention. The woman was holding 2 babies. Twins. They were wrapped in old, faded rags, their skin covered in dust. Their cries were weak but piercing, even through the car's closed windows. The woman sat there trying to shield them from the scorching sun with a piece of cardboard. Samuel frowned. They're always doing this, madam. These beggars. Some of them even rent babies to get sympathy. But Olivia wasn't listening. She leaned forward, her eyes fixed on the babies' faces. Something about them made her chest tighten. Then one of the twins looked up. His eyes were a striking amber color, rare and beautiful, the exact same color as David's eyes. Olivia's breath caught in her throat. "No," she whispered. "It can't be." The second baby turned his head, and there they were again. Those same amber eyes. David's eyes. Her heart started pounding.
"Stop the car," she said.
Samuel looked confused. "Madam." "I said stop the car. Now." Samuel hit the brakes and pulled over to the curb. Olivia opened the door and stepped out into the hot sun, ignoring the dust that immediately settled on her expensive shoes. Samuel grabbed an umbrella and hurried after her. "Madam, wait." But Olivia was already walking fast toward the woman on the sidewalk. Her high heels clicked against the pavement. People on the street turned to stare. A woman like her, dressed in designer clothes, approaching a beggar? When she reached the woman, she stopped. The woman looked up, fear and surprise written all over her dirty face. "Who are you?" Olivia demanded, her voice firm. The woman's lips trembled. I'm Grace." Olivia looked down at the babies. Up close, they looked even weaker, like they were starving. "But those eyes, those amber eyes. Are they yours?" Olivia asked. "Yes," Grace said quickly, holding the babies tighter. "They're mine." "Where is their father?" Grace looked away, saying nothing. The sun beat down on them. A car honked. One of the babies started crying harder, a weak, desperate sound that pierced Olivia's heart. She didn't understand what was happening to her. She didn't know this woman. She didn't know these babies. But something inside her, something deep and powerful, was pulling her toward them. She took a deep breath and looked back at her car. Samuel was standing there, still holding the umbrella, confusion written all over his face. Olivia turned back to Grace. "Get up," she said. Grace looked terrified. "Please, I'm not crazy. I'm just hungry. Please don't call the police." "I'm not calling the police," Olivia said, her voice softer now. "You're coming with me." Grace's eyes widened. "What? You and the babies. You're coming with me. Now." "No, please, I don't want trouble." "There's no trouble," Olivia interrupted. "But those babies look sick. They need help. And you." She paused, studying Grace's thin, exhausted face. "You need help too." Grace started to protest, but Olivia raised her hand. "I'm not asking. I'm telling you. Get up and come with me. Or stay here and watch your baby suffer. Your choice." It wasn't really a choice. Slowly, carefully, Grace stood up. Her legs were shaking. She held the babies close to her chest, protecting them like they were the only things in the world that mattered. Samuel's mouth dropped open as Olivia led Grace toward the Mercedes. "Madam, are you sure about this?" "Open the door, Samuel," Olivia said quietly. "But madam." "Now." Samuel opened the back door. Grace hesitated, looking at the clean leather seats, then down at her dirty clothes. "Get in," Olivia said gently. "It's okay." Grace climbed in carefully, trying not to touch anything. The moment the door closed and the air conditioning hit them, both babies stopped crying. The cool air seemed to calm them instantly. Olivia got in beside Grace. She didn't say anything for a long moment. She just stared at those two tiny faces, those amber eyes, now closed peacefully. Samuel got in the driver's seat, still looking shocked. "Madam, where are we going?" "Home," Olivia said simply. As the car pulled away from the curb, Olivia felt something she hadn't felt in months. She didn't know if it was hope or fear or something in between. But she knew one thing for certain. This wasn't a coincidence. Those eyes weren't a mistake. And her life was about to change in ways she couldn't even imagine. The question was she ready for the truth? The car ride was quiet except for the gentle hum of the air conditioning. Olivia sat stiffly, her designer handbag on her lap, her eyes fixed on the two babies. Grace sat at the far edge of the seat, looking like She might jump out of the car at any moment. The babies had fallen asleep, their tiny chests rising and falling peacefully. They looked so much better just from being out of the sun, but Olivia could see how thin they were, how their little arms looked fragile. "How old are they?" Olivia asked quietly. Grace jumped slightly at the sound of her voice. 9 months, madam." "What are their names?" "Daniel and David," Grace whispered. Olivia's heart stopped. "David?" "Yes, madam. I named him David." Olivia turned to look at Grace properly for the first time. "Why that name?" Grace looked down at the baby in her left arm. It was his father's name. The car felt like all the air had been sucked out of it. Olivia couldn't breathe. She opened her mouth to ask more questions, but no words came out. They drove through the security gate of her estate. Grace's eyes went wide as she saw the mansion, the gardens, the fountain. You live here?" she asked, her voice barely audible. Olivia didn't answer. When the car stopped, 2 of Olivia's staff ran out. One of them reached to help with the babies, but Olivia pulled back quickly. "Don't touch them," she said sharply. The staff member stepped back, looking confused and a little offended. Olivia got out carefully, still holding one of the twins. Grace followed with the other baby, walking slowly, like she was afraid she might break something. Inside the house, the marble floors gleamed. A crystal chandelier hung from the ceiling. Soft music played from hidden speakers. Grace stopped at the door, looking down at her bare, dirty feet. I'm too dirty, madam," she said. Olivia turned around. For a moment, she just looked at this young woman, so thin and frightened, clutching a baby like her life depended on it. "Come in," Olivia said, her voice softer than before. "It's just a floor. It can be cleaned." She called out, "Patience." A woman in a neat uniform appeared. "Yes, madam. Get a basin of warm water. And call Dr. Mthembu. Tell him to come immediately. It's urgent." Patience's eyes went to Grace and the babies, but she said nothing. "Yes, madam," she said and disappeared. Olivia led Grace to the living room and gently placed the baby she was holding on the soft cream-colored sofa. Grace carefully laid down the other twin beside his brother. One of them started to whimper. Grace immediately reached for him. "Is he okay?" she asked, panic in her voice. "Which one is which?" Olivia asked. "That's Daniel. The other is David." "Daniel and David," Olivia repeated slowly, as if tasting the names in her mouth. She stared at the twins again. Those eyes. Even with their eyes closed, she could remember them. Amber. Exactly like her late husband's. A color so rare that she'd only seen it once before in her life. 20 minutes later, Dr. Mthembu arrived. He was a kind, middle-aged man who had been Olivia's family doctor for years. "Good evening, Madam Hamilton," he said, setting down his medical bag. He looked at the babies on the sofa, then at Grace standing nervously in a corner. "What seems to be the problem?" "Check them," Olivia said, her voice tight. "They've been living on the streets. They look weak. I need to know if they're okay." Dr. Mthembu nodded and began his examination. He checked their temperatures, listened to their hearts, looked in their ears and mouths. Grace watched every move he made like a hawk, ready to protect her babies if needed. After about 15 minutes, the doctor looked up. "They're severely malnourished," he said quietly. "Very dehydrated. Their bodies are weak. But they're alive, and if we act quickly, they can recover." "What do they need?" Olivia asked. "Rest. Proper nutrition. Clean water. Medical observation for the next few days." He looked at Grace. "How have you been feeding them?" Grace's voice shook. "Whatever I can find, doctor. Sometimes I buy pap if someone gives me money. Sometimes I soak bread in water. Sometimes—" Her voice broke. "Sometimes there's nothing." Olivia closed her eyes. The pain in her chest was almost physical. Dr. Mthembu set up small 4 drips for both babies, just to get some fluids and nutrients into their tiny bodies quickly. Then he stood and looked at Olivia. "Madam, can I speak with you privately?" They stepped into the hallway. Dr. Mthembu's face was serious. "These children have been suffering for a long time," he said quietly. Whoever has been caring for them has done their best with nothing. But madam, why did you bring them here? Olivia looked back toward the living room where Grace sat with the babies. Their eyes, she whispered. What about their eyes? They have David's eyes. Dr. Mthembu went very still. Your late husband David? Yes. Madam Hamilton, that's impossible. Mr. David passed away 6 months ago. These babies are 9 months old. I know, Olivia said, her voice cracking. Which means they were born 3 months before he died. Which means… She couldn't finish the sentence. The weight of what it meant was too heavy. Dr. Mthembu put a gentle hand on her shoulder. Madam, amber eyes are rare, yes. But they're not impossible. It could be a coincidence. Could be, Olivia said. But I need to know for sure. She turned to face him fully. Doctor, I need you to do a DNA test. Dr. Mthembu sighed. Madam, I still have David's medical records. His DNA is on file from the autopsy. Test these babies against it. I need to know the truth. Dr. Mthembu looked at her for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly. If that's what you want, I'll collect the samples tomorrow. Thank you. That night, after Dr. Mthembu left, Olivia had her staff prepare a guest room. They set up a crib that had been stored away for years. One Olivia had bought in hope but never used. They put clean sheets on it, soft blankets. Grace was given her own room with a bathroom. She took a long shower, her first hot shower in months. When she came out, wearing clean clothes that Olivia had given her, she looked like a different person. Younger, prettier, scared. She ate dinner like someone who hadn't seen food in days, which was probably true. The babies slept in the crib, finally peaceful, finally safe. But Olivia didn't sleep that night. She stood by her bedroom window, looking out at the lights of Johannesburg in the distance. She kept thinking about David, about their marriage, about all the times he'd told her he loved her, that they were partners, that children didn't matter. Had he been lying the whole time? She went to his study, the one room she hadn't touched since he died. Everything was exactly as he'd left it. His books on the shelves, his papers on the desk, his reading glasses beside the computer. She opened his desk drawers one by one. Bank statements, business cards, a half-finished crossword puzzle. Then she found a small locked box in the bottom drawer. Her hands shook as she broke the lock with a letter opener. Inside were letters. Love letters. Not from her. She opened the first one with trembling hands. Asterisk, my love. Thank you for visiting last weekend. I wish you could stay longer. I know your life is complicated, but when you're with me, everything feels right. I don't ask for much.
Just come when you can.
Love always, Your Grace. Asterisk. Olivia's vision blurred with tears. She opened another letter. Asterisk, David, I'm scared. I think I'm pregnant. I know this wasn't part of the plan, but it's happening. What should I do? Please call me. I need you. Asterisk. Her hands were shaking so badly, she dropped the letters. They scattered across the floor like fallen leaves. All those years. All those tears. All those treatments and doctors and prayers. And he'd had another woman. Another life. She picked up one more letter. The date was recent, just a few weeks before David died. Asterisk, I can't do this anymore. You promised you would tell your wife. You promised you would help me with the babies. But it's been months and I haven't heard from you. I'm living on the streets, David. Our sons are hungry. If you don't come, I don't know what I'll do. Asterisk. Olivia sat on the floor of David's study, surrounded by the evidence of his betrayal, and she wept. Not quietly. Not politely. She cried like a woman whose whole world had just been revealed as a lie. The man she'd loved. The man she'd trusted with everything. He'd had a whole other family.
Children.
The children she'd dreamed of having with him. And he'd left that woman and those babies to starve on the streets while he came home every night to his mansion. Morning came too soon. Olivia's eyes were red and swollen, but her face was set with determination. When Dr. Mthembu arrived to collect DNA samples from the twins, she watched silently. The results will take 2 days, he said gently. I'll be waiting, Olivia replied. But deep in her heart, she already knew the truth. She'd seen it in those amber eyes. She'd read it in those letters. These babies were David's sons, her husband's secret children. The question now was, what was she going to do about it? 2 days felt like 2 years. Olivia walked through her house like a ghost, barely eating, barely sleeping. She watched Grace care for the twins with such tenderness, such love, even though Grace herself was just a girl, barely 24 years old. The twins were getting stronger. Color was returning to their cheeks. They were starting to smile, to make little baby sounds. Daniel would reach for Grace's face with his tiny hands. David would giggle when she tickled his feet. Olivia watched from a distance, her heart breaking over and over again. On the third morning, Dr. Mthembu returned. He was holding a brown envelope. His face was serious. Olivia met him in her office, away from everyone else. She closed the door.
Tell me, she said.
He handed her the envelope. She opened it with shaking hands. The words on the page blurred together at first, but then she found the line that mattered. Asterisk DNA match confirmed. Probability of paternity, 99.97%, asterisk. The envelope slipped from her fingers and fluttered to the floor. Olivia gripped the edge of her desk, her knuckles turning white. Madam Hamilton, Dr. Mthembu said gently, I'm so sorry.
She didn't cry.
She'd cried all her tears already. Instead, she felt something cold settle in her chest. Anger. Pure, cold anger. Thank you, doctor, she said, her voice flat. You can go. Madam, perhaps you should talk to someone. A counselor or... I said you can go. He left quietly, closing the door behind him. Olivia stood alone in her office. The walls were covered with photos of her and David. Their wedding day. Vacations in Cape Town and Paris. Business conferences. Anniversary dinners. All of it was a lie. While she'd been crying herself to sleep, wondering why she couldn't get pregnant, he'd been making babies with another woman. While she'd been going through painful treatments and tests, feeling broken and worthless, he'd had 2 healthy sons growing in another woman's belly. And then he died. Left her with the company, the money, the mansion. But also left that woman, Grace, homeless and starving with his children. That evening, Olivia found Grace in the garden. The twins were on a blanket on the grass, both of them cooing at the clouds above. Grace was sitting beside them, singing softly in Zulu. Grace, Olivia said. Grace jumped up immediately, like a child caught doing something wrong. Yes, madam. Sit down. We need to talk. Grace sat back down slowly, fear in her eyes. Olivia sat on the garden bench across from her. For a long moment, she just watched the babies. They were so innocent.
So pure.
They didn't know anything about betrayal or lies or broken hearts. How did you meet David? Olivia asked quietly. Grace's hands started shaking. Madam, just tell me the truth. I already know you had a relationship with my husband. I just want to hear it from you. Grace's eyes filled with tears. I was a student at Wits University, she said, her voice barely a whisper. Second year, studying nursing. He came to give a talk about technology and healthcare. He was so smart, so handsome, so kind. After the talk, he asked for my number. Said he wanted to mentor me. Olivia's jaw tightened, but she said nothing. At first it was just coffee, Grace continued, tears now rolling down her cheeks. He would ask about my studies, give me advice. I thought he was just being nice. Then one day he told me I was special, that he'd never met anyone like me. And you believed him. I was young, madam. Stupid. I didn't know he was married at first. He never wore a ring. He never mentioned you. By the time I found out, I was already... She touched her stomach. I was already pregnant. Did you try to contact him? Grace nodded, wiping her tears with the back of her hand. I wrote him letters. So many letters. I begged him to help me, to at least acknowledge his children. He came once. Just once. When the babies were 2 months old. He brought money and told me to go away. To move to another city. To forget about him. But you didn't. I couldn't, madam. These are his sons. I thought maybe if I stayed, if he saw them, he would change his mind. But then... Her voice broke completely. Then I heard he died. And I had nothing. No money. No family. I dropped out of university because I couldn't afford fees. I couldn't get a job because I had no one to watch the babies. So I ended up on the streets. Olivia closed her eyes. The pain was so deep she felt like she was drowning in it. All those years, while she'd been the perfect wife, managing his house, supporting his business, trying desperately to give him the child he supposedly didn't need, he'd been building a whole secret life. Do you have proof? Olivia asked. Anything that proves David is their father? Grace nodded quickly. She ran inside and came back with a small plastic bag. Inside was a faded photo. Olivia took it with trembling hands. It was David. Younger, smiling, with his arm around Grace. They were at a restaurant. He was looking at her the way he used to look at Olivia a lifetime ago. Olivia's hand dropped to her lap. The photo fell onto the grass. I'm sorry, madam, Grace whispered. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to destroy your marriage. I was foolish and greedy. I saw he had money, and I let myself be fooled. Olivia looked at her. This girl was so young, so broken. Just like the babies, she was a victim of David's lies. It's not your fault, Olivia said quietly. You didn't destroy my marriage. David did that all by himself. That night, Olivia couldn't sleep again. She paced her bedroom, her mind racing. What should she do now? Send Grace and the babies away? Pretend she never met them? Try to forget that her husband had betrayed her in the worst possible way? But every time she closed her eyes, she saw those amber eyes. David's eyes. Looking up at her with trust and innocence. Those babies had done nothing wrong. They didn't ask to be born. They didn't ask for their father to lie and abandon them. Around midnight, Olivia made a decision. One that would shock everyone. One that would change everything. She would not abandon them. She would not turn her back on those innocent children just because their father had been a liar and a cheat. She called her lawyer the next morning. I want to become the legal guardian of Daniel and David Hamilton, she said firmly. Her lawyer was silent for a long moment. Madam Hamilton, are you sure? These children are your husband's illegitimate sons. The board of directors will not react well to this. I don't care what the board thinks, Olivia said. Those boys are David's children. They carry his blood. That makes them family whether I like it or not. They deserve his name. They deserve a future. Start the paperwork. Yes, madam. But madam, there's something you should know. If you legally adopt these children, they will be entitled to a share of the Hamilton estate. David's cousins have been asking about the will. They're already positioning themselves to take over the company, since you have no children. If these boys become your legal sons, then they become heirs, Olivia finished.
Good.
Let them be heirs. They have more right to David's legacy than his greedy cousins do. She hung up the phone and went to find Grace. She found her in the twins' room, folding tiny clothes that the staff had bought. Grace, Olivia said. Grace immediately stood up. Yes, madam. I've made a decision. I'm going to become the legal guardian of Daniel and David. They'll have my last name. They'll grow up in this house. They'll have everything they need. Grace's eyes went wide. Madam, you would do that? After everything? I'm not doing it for you, Olivia said honestly. I'm doing it for them. They're innocent. They deserve better than the streets. And... She paused. They're David's sons. As much as I hate what he did, I can't punish children for their father's mistakes. Grace fell to her knees, tears streaming down her face. Thank you, madam. Thank you so much. You're an angel. Get up, Olivia said, her voice firm but not unkind. I'm not an angel. I'm just trying to do what's right. But there are conditions. Grace stood quickly. Anything, madam. You'll stay here and care for the babies. I'll make sure you finish your nursing degree. When they're older, you'll tell them the truth about who their father was. No lies. They deserve to know. Yes, madam. I promise. Olivia turned to leave, but Grace called out, "Madam?" She turned back. "Why are you being so kind to me? After everything I did?" Olivia looked at her for a long moment. Because someone has to break the cycle of bitterness and hate. David lied to both of us. He hurt both of us. If I punish you and these babies, I'm just spreading more pain. And I'm tired of pain, Grace. I'm so tired. But what Olivia didn't know was that her kindness was about to be tested in a way she never expected. Because Grace wasn't the person she seemed to be. And the worst betrayal was yet to come. Before the story continues, subscribe. These stories are written to change lives. 3 months passed. On the surface, everything seemed to be going well. The twins were thriving, growing stronger and healthier every day. Grace had enrolled in an online nursing program. The house felt alive again. There was laughter, baby sounds,
Joy.
but Olivia started feeling sick. At first, it was just tiredness. She'd wake up exhausted even after a full night's sleep. Then came the headaches, sharp and piercing. Her hands would shake for no reason. Sometimes her vision would blur. "You're just stressed, madam," Dr. Mthemba said when she called him. "You've been through a lot. Your body is reacting to the emotional trauma." But it kept getting worse. She started missing meetings. She couldn't concentrate. Some days, she could barely get out of bed. The board of directors started calling. "Mrs. Hamilton, we're concerned about your health. Perhaps you should step down temporarily. Let someone else run the company until you're feeling better." She knew what they really meant. They wanted her out. They wanted control. One morning, Olivia woke up feeling so weak she could barely lift her head. She tried to get up to get water, but her legs wouldn't work properly. She had to hold onto the wall to make it to the bathroom. As she slowly made her way downstairs, she heard laughter coming from the twins' room. Strange. It was late at night. Why was Grace still awake? Olivia walked slowly toward the room, each step feeling like she was walking through water. She stopped at the door when she heard Grace's voice. "She'll be gone soon," Grace was saying. "The pills are working perfectly. She doesn't suspect anything." Olivia's blood ran cold. Her hand gripped the doorframe. A man's voice responded. "Are you sure? What if someone finds out?" "No one will find out," Grace said with a laugh. "The doctor thinks she's just stressed. I've been putting the poison in her morning tea for weeks now. Just small doses so it looks natural. In a few more weeks, her organs will start failing. Everyone will think it's from grief and stress." Olivia felt her knees buckle. She pressed her hand over her mouth to keep from making a sound. "And when she dies?" the man asked. "Then everything becomes mine," Grace said. "She already made those stupid twins her heirs. And I'm their mother. That means I control everything. The company, the money, the mansion. All of it." The man laughed. And then, my love, we can finally be together. You and me. We'll get married, and you'll become part of the Hamilton family. Just like you always wanted, Victor." Victor. Olivia's mind raced. Victor Hamilton. David's cousin. The one who'd been trying to take over the company. "I can't believe she fell for it," Victor said. "The poor street woman act. The innocent victim. She actually believed you were grateful." Grace's laugh was cold and cruel. People like Olivia are easy to fool. They think kindness makes them smart. They think they're better than everyone else. She never suspected that I came to her on purpose. That I waited on that street corner because I knew she drove that route every Wednesday. Olivia felt tears streaming down her face. It was all a lie. All of it. "What about those letters you showed her?" Victor asked.
Fake.
"Well, mostly fake. I did meet David at the university, but he never promised me anything. He paid me off and told me to disappear. These babies." Grace laughed. "They're his, but he never wanted them. He never wanted me. But when he died, I saw an opportunity. I knew his widow would be vulnerable, childless, desperate. So I made myself into exactly what she needed to see." "You're brilliant," Victor said. "I know. And soon, all of this will be ours." Olivia couldn't listen anymore. She turned and tried to walk away, but her vision went black. She felt herself falling, reaching out for something to grab onto, but there was nothing. She hit the floor hard. The last thing she heard before she passed out was Grace's scream. But it wasn't a scream of concern. It was a scream of annoyance. When Olivia woke up, she was in a car. Samuel's voice was panicked. "Stay with me, madam. Please stay with me. We're almost at the hospital." "Samuel," she tried to say, but her voice was just a whisper.
"Don't talk, madam.
Save your strength." At the hospital, doctors rushed her into the emergency room. They hooked her up to machines, took blood samples, started 4 drips. Dr. Mthembu appeared, his face grave. "What happened?" he asked Samuel. "I don't know, doctor. I heard a loud crash and ran upstairs. I found Madam collapsed in the hallway. She could barely breathe." Hours passed. Olivia drifted in and out of consciousness. She heard voices, machines beeping, footsteps rushing. Finally, Dr. Mthembu's voice broke through the fog. "Madam Hamilton, can you hear me?" She managed to nod slightly. "We ran tests. Madam, you've been poisoned." Olivia's eyes snapped open fully. "I know," she whispered. Dr. Mthembu leaned closer. "You know?"
"How?"
"Grace," Olivia said, her voice getting stronger with anger. "She's been putting poison in my tea. I heard her talking to Victor Hamilton. They're planning to kill me and take everything." Dr. Mthembu's face went pale. "This is serious, madam. We need to call the police." "No," Olivia said, grabbing his arm with surprising strength. "Not yet. I need proof. Right now it's just my word against theirs." "But madam, you could die." "Then help me," Olivia interrupted. "Help me fake my death." Dr. Mthembu stared at her like she'd lost her mind. "What? You heard me. If they think I'm dead, they'll relax. They'll expose themselves. They'll confess everything on their own." Her eyes burned with determination. "I trusted Grace. I opened my home to her. I tried to save those babies. And she repaid me with poison and lies." Dr. Mthembu was quiet for a long moment. Then he slowly nodded. "If this is what you want, we'll need to be very careful." "I don't care about careful anymore, doctor. I care about justice." The next morning, Dr. Mthembu gave Olivia a special injection. "This will slow your heart rate dramatically," he explained. "Your breathing will become almost undetectable. Your skin will turn cold and pale. To everyone else, you'll appear dead. But you'll still be conscious, just barely." "How long will it last?" "Several hours. Long enough for people to believe it." "But madam, this is dangerous. If something goes wrong..." "Then it goes wrong," Olivia said. "I'm ready."
"Do it."
Dr. Mthembu injected the medicine into her arm. Within minutes, Olivia felt her body going numb. Her heartbeat slowed. Her breathing became shallow. Her vision started to fade. The last thing she saw before everything went dark was Dr. Mthembu's worried face. An hour later, Dr. Mthembu walked out of the hospital room with tears in his eyes. Samuel was waiting in the hallway. "Doctor, how is she?" Dr. Mthembu shook his head slowly. "I'm sorry, Samuel. Mrs. Hamilton passed away 30 minutes ago." Samuel's legs gave out. He collapsed into a chair, his face in his hands.
"No.
"No, this can't be happening." "Her body couldn't handle the stress anymore," Dr. Mthembu said, keeping his voice steady even though his heart was pounding. "She was already weak from grief. The poison in her system, there was nothing we could do." Within hours, the news spread everywhere. The radio announced it. Television stations covered it. Social media exploded with tributes and shock. At the mansion, Grace got the phone call. She stood in the middle of the living room, holding her phone, and then she screamed.
"No.
"Oh God, no.
She's gone."
Madam Olivia is dead." The house staff rushed in. Grace collapsed to her knees, wailing dramatically. "The enemies have won. They've taken her from us." But as she bent down, pretending to cry, a small smile crossed her face. A smile no one could see. Later that night, after everyone had gone to their rooms, Grace pulled out her phone. She dialed Victor's number. "It's done," she whispered. "She's dead." "Are you sure?" Victor asked. Dr. Mthembo confirmed it himself. "She died this afternoon. We're free, Victor. Everything is ours now." In the hospital, in a special private room that only Dr. Mthembu and Samuel knew about, Olivia lay on a bed. Her body was still cold, still barely breathing, but she could hear everything. Dr. Mthembu had placed a tiny recording device on Grace before she left the hospital. Every word she said was being captured, and Olivia heard it all. The fake crying, the phone call to Victor, the celebration of her death. Her heart, which had been slowed by medicine, started beating faster with pure rage. Tears leaked from the corners of her eyes, but she couldn't move to wipe them away. "Soon," Dr. Mthembu whispered, standing beside her bed. "Soon, madam. We'll have all the evidence we need." The next day, the mansion was filled with people coming to pay their respects. Business partners, board members, relatives, everyone dressed in black, speaking in hushed tones. Grace played the grieving friend perfectly. She wore a simple black dress and cried at all the right moments. "She was like a mother to me," she told people. "I don't know what I'll do without her." But that evening, when everyone had left, Grace's lawyer arrived. A short man with glasses and a briefcase. "Miss Grace," he said, sitting across from her in the living room. "I'm here to read Mrs. Hamilton's will." Grace tried to look sad, but her eyes gleamed with excitement. "So soon?" Mrs. Hamilton updated her will just 2 weeks ago. She wanted everything to be clear. He opened the document and began to read. "I, Olivia Hamilton, being of sound mind and body, do hereby leave the following. To my legally adopted sons, Daniel and David Hamilton, I leave controlling shares of Hamilton Tech Industries, my estate, and all properties. These assets will be held in trust until they reach the age of 21. Until that time, their legal guardian, Grace Okonkwo, will manage these assets on their behalf." Grace's smile was so wide she couldn't hide it anymore. "I'm their guardian? I control everything." "Yes, Miss Grace. You'll have full control of the company and all assets until the boys come of age." The moment the lawyer left, Grace called Victor.
"Get here now," she said.
"We need to celebrate." Victor arrived within an hour. The moment he walked through the door, Grace threw herself into his arms. They kissed like people who had been waiting for this moment for a long time. "We did it," Grace said, laughing. "We actually did it." "I knew you could," Victor said. "The moment I met you at that bar 2 years ago, and you told me about David and those babies, I knew we could use this." Grace poured expensive wine, David's favorite collection. They sat in Olivia's living room, drinking from her glasses, celebrating her death.
"She was so stupid," Grace said.
So desperate for children, for family, that she couldn't see what was right in front of her. "I played the poor victim, and she ate it up." "What about the babies?" Victor asked. "What about them? They're useful. They're my ticket to everything. When they're older, we'll send them to boarding school. Out of sight, out of mind." They laughed and drank more wine. Then Grace stood up and walked to a corner of the room where there was a small camera hidden in a plant, placed there by Olivia's security team months ago. She looked directly at it, not knowing it was there, and said, "Here's to Olivia Hamilton, the fool who died thinking she was doing good. Thank you for everything, you stupid, barren woman." In the hospital room, Olivia watched the recording on Dr. Mthembo's tablet. The medicine had worn off now. She was fully conscious, sitting up in bed, her face wet with tears of rage. "I have enough," she said quietly. "I have everything I need." Dr. Mthembo nodded. "What do you want to do, madam?" Olivia wiped her tears and stood up. Her legs were shaky, but her voice was strong. "Call my lawyer. Tell him to file for an emergency court hearing. And call the police. I want Grace and Victor arrested for attempted murder and fraud." "When should we do this?" Olivia looked at the calendar on the wall. "Tomorrow. There's a board meeting scheduled at the company. Grace and Victor will be there, trying to take control. That's when we'll strike." She looked at Dr. Mthembu. And that's when Olivia Hamilton will rise from the dead. The boardroom of Hamilton Tech Industries was packed. 12 board members sat around a long glass table. At the head of the table, where Olivia used to sit, was Grace. She wore a designer black suit and expensive jewelry. Her hair was styled perfectly. She looked like she belonged there. Beside her sat Victor Hamilton, smirking like a man who'd just won the lottery. "Ladies and gentlemen," Grace began, her voice confident. "I know this is a difficult time for all of us. We've lost a great leader in Olivia Hamilton. But life must go on, and the company must continue." One of the older board members, Mr. Dlamini, spoke up. "With all due respect, Miss Grace, you have no experience running a technology company. Perhaps it would be better if—" "If what?" Victor interrupted. "If the board takes over? Let me remind you all that those twin boys are the legal heirs to this company. And Grace is their mother and guardian. That means she speaks for them, which means she controls this company now." Several board members shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Grace smiled sweetly. "I understand your concerns, but I've been learning from the best. Olivia taught me so much in the months we spent together. I won't let her legacy down." Just as she was about to continue, the boardroom doors burst open. Police officers filed in. 6 of them, led by a senior detective. "What is the meaning of this?" Victor stood up, his face red with anger. The detective looked at him coldly. "Victor Hamilton and Grace Okonkwo, you're both under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder, fraud, and attempted murder." The room exploded in shocked gasps. Grace's face went white. "This is insane. I haven't done anything." "We have evidence," the detective said. "Recorded confessions, video footage, medical reports proving that Mrs. Olivia Hamilton was being systematically poisoned." "Mrs. Hamilton is dead," Grace screamed. "You can't arrest us for killing someone who died of natural causes. That's where you're wrong." Every head in the room turned to the doorway. And there she stood, Olivia Hamilton. Alive. Walking. Healthy. Grace's mouth fell open. Her eyes went so wide they looked like they might pop out of her head. "No," she whispered. "No, this isn't possible. You're dead. I saw the death certificate. I attended the mourning. You're dead." "I'm very much alive," Olivia said, walking into the room with her head held high. Surprised, Victor tried to run for the back door, but police officers blocked his way. He was grabbed and handcuffed before he could take 2 steps. Grace fell to her knees. "Please, Madam Olivia, please. I can't explain. It was Victor. He forced me to do it. I never wanted to hurt you." Olivia walked slowly toward her. The entire boardroom was silent. You could hear a pin drop. "You're a liar, Grace," Olivia said quietly. "I have recordings of everything. Your phone calls, your conversations with Victor, your confession about how you planned this from the very beginning." She turned to the detective. "Play the recording." The detective pressed a button on his phone. The boardroom speakers crackled to life, and then everyone heard it. Grace's voice, clear as day. She was so stupid, so desperate for children, for family, that she couldn't see what was right in front of her. "I played the poor victim, and she ate it up." Then Victor's voice. "What about the babies?" Grace's response. "What about them? They're useful. They're my ticket to everything." The recording continued, playing every cruel word, every calculated lie, every heartless laugh. When it ended, the silence in the room was deafening. Mr. Dlamini stood up, his face full of disgust. "Take them away," he said to the police. "Take them both away." Grace was crying now, real tears this time. "Madam Olivia, please. What about the babies? What about Daniel and David?" Olivia's face was cold as ice. "Those boys deserve better than a mother who sees them as tools. Better than a mother who is willing to kill for money. The court will decide what happens to them." "But you promised you'd take care of them." "I said I'd take care of David's sons," Olivia replied. "And I will. But not because of you. Despite you." The police dragged Grace and Victor out of the boardroom. Grace was screaming, begging, crying. Victor was silent, his face dark with rage. When the doors closed behind them, Olivia sat down in her chair at the head of the table. She looked around at the shocked faces of the board members. "Ladies and gentlemen," she said calmly, "let's get back to business." 1 week later, the courtroom was packed. Journalists filled the back rows. The trial of Grace Okonkwo and Victor Hamilton had captured the nation's attention. The prosecutor presented all the evidence. The recordings. The video footage of Grace and Victor celebrating Olivia's death. The medical reports showing high levels of arsenic in Olivia's blood. The empty bottles of poison found in Grace's room. Grace's lawyer tried to argue that she'd been manipulated by Victor, that she was just a young woman who'd made mistakes. But then Olivia took the stand. "Tell us, Mrs. Hamilton," the prosecutor said, "why did you decide to help this woman in the first place?" Olivia took a deep breath. "Because I saw babies who were suffering. Innocent children who needed help. I didn't do it for Grace. I did it because those boys had my husband's eyes, and even though he'd betrayed me, I couldn't punish innocent children for their father's mistakes." "And when did you realize Grace was poisoning you?" "When I heard her confessing to Victor. She laughed about it. She called me stupid for being kind to her." The prosecutor nodded. "One final question, Mrs. Hamilton. After everything Grace has done to you, what do you think should happen to the twins?" Olivia looked across the courtroom to where Daniel and David sat with a social worker. They were 1-year-old now, bigger and healthier, with those same amber eyes that had started all of this. "I still want to be their guardian," Olivia said softly. The courtroom erupted in whispers. Even the judge looked surprised. "Even after what their mother did to you?" the prosecutor asked. "Yes," Olivia said firmly. "Because those boys are innocent. They didn't ask to be born. They didn't ask for their father to be a liar or their mother to be a poisoner. They deserve a chance at a good life. And if I don't give it to them, then Grace wins. She turns me into someone bitter and cruel. Someone who punishes children for their parents' sins." She looked directly at Grace, who was crying in the defendant's chair. "I won't let you make me into a monster, Grace. Those boys will grow up knowing the truth about their parents. But they'll also grow up knowing that someone chose to love them anyway." The judge was quiet for a moment. Then he spoke. "This court finds Grace Okonkwo and Victor Hamilton guilty of conspiracy to commit murder and attempted murder. I sentence both defendants to 25 years in prison." The gavel struck.
Bang, bang, bang.
Grace screamed. Victor sat in silence, his face blank. "As for the twins," the judge continued, "custody will be granted to Mrs. Olivia Hamilton, provided she completes the necessary psychological evaluations and parenting courses." Olivia closed her eyes, tears streaming down her face. But this time, they were tears of relief. 3 years later, Olivia stood in the garden of her home, watching Daniel and David play on the grass. They were 4 years old now, running around chasing butterflies, their laughter filling the air. Samuel, her driver, walked over with a tray of lemonade. "They're getting so big, madam." "They are," Olivia said with a smile.
"Too big."
"Too fast." "Do they ask about their mother?" Olivia nodded. "Sometimes. I tell them the truth, in words they can understand. That their mother made bad choices. That she's in a place where people go when they hurt others. But I also tell them that people are more than their worst mistakes." "That's very kind of you, madam." "It's not kind, Samuel. It's necessary. Those boys will grow up with enough challenges. They don't need me adding hate to their burden." David ran over, his little face bright with excitement. "Mama live! Mama live! Look what I found." He held up a small rock that sparkled in the sunlight. Olivia's heart squeezed. They'd started calling her Mama Live 6 months ago, and every time they said it, she wanted to cry. "That's beautiful, my love," she said, kneeling down to his level. "Should we add it to our collection?" "Yes." Both boys ran off to get their treasure box. Olivia stood up slowly. She thought about everything that had happened. The betrayal. The poison. The lies.
The pain.
But she also thought about these 2 little boys who called her Mama. Who trusted her. Who loved her without knowing all the complicated history. She'd lost a husband who betrayed her. She'd almost lost her life to someone she tried to help. But she'd gained something more precious than she could have imagined. She'd gained the family she'd always wanted. Not in the way she'd planned. Not in the way she'd dreamed. But in the way she needed. Later that evening, after the boys were asleep, Olivia sat in her study. She opened the drawer where she kept Grace's letters, the ones that had broken her heart years ago. She read through them one last time. Then she walked to the fireplace and dropped them in, watching them burn. "I forgive you, David," she whispered to the flames. "And I forgive you too, Grace. Not because you deserve it, but because I deserve peace." The letters turned to ash. The past burned away. And Olivia Hamilton walked out of that study feeling lighter than she had in years. Because she'd learned something that money and power could never teach her. That true strength isn't in revenge. It's in choosing love when hate would be easier. It's in protecting the innocent even when you've been hurt by the guilty. It's in becoming the person you needed when you were broken. And as she walked upstairs to check on her sleeping boys one last time, Olivia realized something beautiful. She'd spent years trying to have children. Years of pain and failure and shame. But in the end, children had found her. Not through her body, but through her heart. And that was the greatest miracle of all. A message to remember asterisk. This story teaches us that evil may succeed for a while, but truth and goodness will always win in the end. Be kind, but never let love make you blind to people's true intentions. Sometimes the people we help the most will hurt us the deepest. But that doesn't mean we should stop helping. It means we should be wise, protect ourselves, and remember that children are never responsible for their parents' mistakes. What would you have done if you were Olivia? Should she have sent the twins away after everything their mother did? Tell us your thoughts in the comments. Thanks for your watching. If this story touched your heart, please like, share with your friends and family, and subscribe for more powerful stories that teach real-life lessons.